Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Geek Out and Speak Out. My name's Geeks. So it's been a few weeks since I've put my video up of June Part 2. Been poorly, been working, so, unfortunately, I don't have a huge amount of time to do these things. Anyway, moving swiftly on, I'm going to try and make these videos a little bit shorter rather than going into a deep dive, because I do tend to ramble on when I really, really love a film, hence the length of my videos. And so just a little disclaimer at the beginning of this one, I will try and keep them shorter. So what am I going to talk about? What I'm going to talk about is about a week and a half ago, so it's been a while since I saw this, but I went to see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I know, very, very cool. I'm a child of the 80s. I was born, okay, I'm going to age myself. I was born in 1981. So I was around when the Ghostbusters were around the original time. A little bit too young to appreciate them at the time, but as I got older, I watched the films more, I appreciated them more. I grew up hearing the Ghostbusters theme at every school disco, everywhere. So yeah, I was around. I was a child of the 80s. I grew up with Ghostbusters, He-Man, then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all of those wonderful things that people of nearly 43 years old grew up watching on TV. So, for the record, the original Ghostbusters was one of my all-time favourite films, up there with Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and all these lovely films from the late 70s and early 80s, films of my childhood, basically. So, Ghostbusters is definitely one of them. Ghostbusters 2 was pretty good. I enjoyed that as well. Maybe not as much as the OG, but, the Ghostbusters 2 was pretty good. Then came Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Not even going to talk about that because it's not even worth talking about as far as I'm concerned. It was blasphemous. Moving on. Ghostbusters Afterlife. Magnificent film. A soft reboot of the series, bringing in a new cast while still keeping the old cast in. That's what I loved about it. Was that it paid homage to what came before, and it honoured what came before, but still pushed the series forward. Fantastic. As a good reintroduction to a new generation of viewers to the Ghostbusters and just how cool the Ghostbusters can be. And then this year we got another sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife called Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now, the task this film had was actually being a proper Ghostbusters sequel. And I say that because Ghostbusters Afterlife was a reintroduction, as a reforming of the Ghostbusters, let's say. So they weren't really in full Ghostbusters swing and that. But by the end of the film and the beginning and all of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, Ghostbusters are in full swing. It's been a few years since the events of Afterlife. And the Ghostbusters are back in New York, they're back in the firehouse, they've got Ecto-1, they've got all of their gear, and they're busting ghosts. And it is awesome. Yeah, much like previous Ghostbusters films, they're funny. It's funny. It's got a lot of comedy in it. Paul Rudd, if you got Paul Rudd in a film, it's going to be funny. He's proven his stuff in comedies in the past, as well as his stuff in the MCU. Let's not forget that Paul Rudd had quite a long career before he was Ant-Man, and he was known to be incredibly funny even before that. But obviously with the Disney and the MCU, he's much more mainstream than he used to be. Be that as it may, you can't go wrong with Paul Rudd. The man is a legend, and the man is like Dorian Gray. He just does not age. I'm sure somewhere in his illustrious house, he's probably got a painting that's aging up. Sorry, it's a very, very classical reference to Dorian Gray there. But the man doesn't age, but he's like a fine wine. He just seems to get better with age. Still hilarious. Can't go wrong with Paul Rudd. Big fan. And all the returning cast as well. And that, okay, I'm not gonna ramble on too much about the cast. What I will say is it's funny. The new cast are very good, young cast, and there's some returning characters you've seen in the trailers. You've got the OG Ghostbusters, obviously minus Harold Ramis, unfortunately. We all know why. Winston Zeddemore, Egon Spengler, Ray Stantz, Peter Venkman, they all come back to this one. Probably Dan Aykroyd, obviously he plays Ray Stantz, has probably got much more screen time, which surprised me actually. I thought they were going to be more focused on the younger cast as well, but Dan Aykroyd has a lot of screen time in this film, which was great, because he was the heart of the Ghostbusters, and the passion in the Ghostbusters. So it was really good to see him back, and he kind of fits into that role again, even though he's so old, bless him, these days. But he still holds up as Ray Stantz and one of the Ghostbusters. Anyway, trying to keep this short, remember? Focus. Okay. Story-wise, plot-wise, But you don't watch these films for the plot, you don't watch them for the story, you watch them for the ghosts and for the action and for the comedy. And there's a very strong family dynamic within the cast, as well as the mixing the old characters with the new characters, and like I said before, about honouring what came before, but also paving the series of movies to go going forwards. And I thought this done a bang up job, and that, because sometimes when they do reboots, they tend to kind of just gently refer to what came before, but this is like a straight out, well, it is a sequel to the original movies, and a reboot at the same time, which I absolutely loved. You see a few ghosts, as you would expect in these kind of films. There's a really good sequence at the beginning of the film where they're chasing the ghosts, these big flying ghosts, through the streets of New York in Ecto 1. Fantastic. I mean, this is just like my childhood. It's great. Although, looking back at the OG films, you don't see them chasing ghosts in Ecto 1, but it was good to see nonetheless. You see Slimer, of course. I think one of the few things that fans missed from the Ghostbusters Afterlife was the presence of Slimer, and he does put in an appearance in this film in a couple of scenes. Still not enough for my liking. In the original film, that Slimer scene with them and with the Ghostbusters and Slimer in the hotel was fantastic. Probably the best part of the film. If I was to say anything negative about the film, I'd say some of the side stories and side plots are a little bit undercooked. Some of the characters were underdeveloped, some of the relationships were not quite there, but again, you don't watch these films, this is not a 3.5 hour epic where you can deep dive into the characters' personalities. This is quite a fast-paced film. You go there to be entertained, you don't go there to think, ooh, this is a really deep and meaningful film. There were some genuinely scary bits as well. With Ghost, you expect to be a little bit frightened, and that I had a unique perspective on this one, because I took one of my children with me. I say children, she's 10, going to be 11 in October, and so she decided she wanted to come and watch it. I was a bit dubious, but she's proper getting into a film now, and it was like, watching it through her eyes was absolutely fantastic. And the reason I bring this up, obviously, is because there were some scary bits. There were some bits when she kind of cuddled up close to me, and it was quite sweet, because they weren't really scary, because I'm a bit old and jaded. But for a 10-year-old, there are some pretty scary bits. I'm not going to give you any spoilers on what they are, but there are some bits that might make a younger viewer a little bit cautious. But with the presence of Daddy Geke, she was perfectly fine, and she absolutely loved it. Excuse me. She absolutely loved it. Let me just say that from the get-go. And it was magnificent to see a child really enjoying the Ghostbusters. It was that generation, because these are the ones that are going to take over after us. So to see that a 10-year-old can still enjoy a Ghostbusters film was just out of this world. I don't want to go ramble too much about this film, but as you could probably tell, I did enjoy it. It was fun. There was a really strong nostalgic feel to this one, and more so than Ghostbusters Afterlife, probably because it was in the familiar surroundings of New York with the firehouse. You see Slimer, you see some familiar faces, and I think it kind of lends to that nostalgia feel, but also, as I said, it's all about pushing the series forward. What I haven't mentioned was the big bad in this one. You don't see a lot of the villain in this one. I suppose it's probably a good thing. And again, much like the undercooked side stories, I think the villain was a little bit undercooked, probably because you didn't see enough of him, whatever. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. Only thing I'll tell you is his name's Geke, which is a bit of a strange name. Sounds a little bit like Baraka from Mortal Kombat. Anyway, but when he was on screen, he was actually quite spooky, quite scary. They did some really good CGI with him, and you know, again, as like Ghostbusters Afterlife, this film was visually stunning. You know, the effects for the ghosts and everything like that were absolutely brilliant. I actually think Slimer may have been part puppet, part CGI. Looking at him, I think he was, you know, much like the original. Which, if they did do that, which I'm sure someone would probably know who's watching this, hopefully, I'm pretty sure he was part puppet, part CGI, or some computer enhancement. I don't know, but he, you know, but they still looked impeccable with ghosts, and what they did with Geke was really, really good. When all the ice effects and everything like that were just top notch, you know. And I think if there were any flaws in this, you know, it probably was maybe some of the special effects weren't as good as you would expect from a big movie, but it still looked good to me. So anyway, let's get to the rating. What I would rate this out of 10. Undercooked stories, undercooked characters, some maybe unnecessary side plots, some, you know, some really good special effects, some little bit ropey. You know what? I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10. And it was entertaining as hell. There was again the nostalgia feel. One of the best things, and this is not to the detriment of the film, was at the end, before the film even finished, they started playing the Ghostbusters theme. And looking over to my right and seeing my 10-year-old dancing in her seat to the Ghostbusters theme. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it, really? It's for young people to enjoy these films as well as crusty old people like me. But to see a young person, there was others in the cinema as well, other young people grooving out to the Ghostbusters theme. Hey man, they've still got it, haven't they? So there it is. There's a few thoughts on Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. What I will say, just as a little side note, I don't get too bogged down with, you know, plot holes, bad acting. I'm not here to slam films. I'm here to give it, hopefully, a lot of positive feedback on what I thought about a film. And if there are some negatives, I find them maybe negatives, but not everyone does, and I appreciate that. But I'm not here to go deep dive and really kind of root out all the things that are wrong with films, because I'm a movie fan. And if you're a fan, you don't want to find negative things. You don't want to deliberately go out looking for negative things and make them a reason not to enjoy the film. You know what I'm saying? I hope you know what I'm saying anyway, but I just feel like I need to make that point very, very clear. I'm a movie fan, and I like this film. Anyway, that's enough from me about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I've got another video going to be dropping very, very soon, so please stay tuned. My name is Geeks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.